The next time you're looking for a job, you may be having to deal with AI instead of a recruiter, and that's probably not a good thing. Well, stick around and I'll tell you more. Hey everybody, it's Brian from Only After Layoff, and today I want to talk about AI and how it might be impacting the workplace, how we look for jobs, and even possibly making some jobs obsolete. And I want to break down from my perspective what I think would happen if AI does truly indeed take over the recruiting function. But before we get too far into it, if you're interested in more career-related content just like this, maybe hit that subscribe button. It seems like ever since ChatGPT came on the market late last year, it's absolutely blown up. And now every company is seeming to chase after their own version of AI and looking for ways to incorporate it into their business. Of course, Google's come out with their own AI chatbot. Microsoft is well known for theirs. Amazon is talking about their own as well. It seems like everybody's getting on this bandwagon. And when I started digging into what exactly this AI is and what it does, ChatGPT, or the functionality that it produces, you type in a few prompts and it can write all these interesting articles and it can create people's term papers. And then there was somebody using AI to get past college entrance exams and all this kind of stuff. Heck, some people are even trying to use it to write their resume, which is a really bad idea. Of course, my curiosity got the best of me, so I started to dig into this ChatGPT a little bit more deeply just to see what it was, kind of poke under the hood a little bit. And it's actually a pretty neat little tool if you go and play around with it a little bit. But nonetheless, the proliferation of AI just seems to have suddenly exploded into the public sphere almost seemingly overnight. And it seems like it's growing exponentially. Every time I refresh my screen, it seems like there's a new use case for some other specialized AI. For example, there's one that creates photographs that look real. And that's a pretty crazy thing. And it seems like this AI is growing even more quickly. I mean, maybe I watch too many sci-fi movies, but there's this dystopian kind of element to it. Because it's growing so fast, where is this going to end up? And how is this going to affect things like the job market? In a very real way, you've got to think that these employers are laying off all these people. They're trying to cut their costs. And of course, as we've learned, corporations are worried first and foremost about their bottom line. And so if you don't think that they're looking at how to leverage AI in their business and whether or not it can replace people, you're kidding yourself and you're being foolish, because they're absolutely going to be looking at where can they leverage these tools to really start to eliminate positions that are repetitive or potentially very expensive. And there are some people who are pretty worried about it.
So you're going for artificial intelligence and you don't want to tell the team.
If you look at software developers, for example, it has been one of the professions that has absolutely exploded. And of course, the wages have gone through the roof over the last two plus years. And now there's some consolidation. And of course, the software developers and the recruiters who have hired them and some of the other ancillary supporting roles have really been hit hard with these tech layoffs. And you got to think that the need for the code that they're producing, or the production that was lost by laying these people off, is still there. These companies are looking at, can we leverage AI to produce some of the base level code and maybe only keep a few architects on? And it seems like software engineers are also worried about this, because there's people who are talking about it online. The headline says that software engineers are panicked about being replaced by AI. And as we look through here, since ChatGPT's headlines captured the news late last year, workers have taken anonymously to sites like Team Blind to question whether or not AI will make their jobs obsolete. And the software engineers on the site were polled, and they found that a lot of people feel that the golden age for software developing potentially could be over. And if it is the case that AI is making certain jobs redundant because they can do it essentially for free versus paying somebody $200,000-$300,000 to write code, then it is a very dystopian future for a lot of people, because that's their entire livelihoods and everything that they've trained for. And I think realistically, we got to be looking at, will this affect our jobs? And this is not something that, will it affect our jobs 10 years from now? Will this affect our jobs today? And I think that there is some people who should be rightfully worried about it. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist about software developing, but when you start to look at how sophisticated AI has become just so quickly, where is it going to be even in a year from now? And it might be a little bit ironic that the same software developers who created the AI to begin with might find that their own creation has made them redundant. And it's kind of a sad and sobering thought. And I really hope that's not the case. but it might be, at least for some software. Now, I don't think all software developing jobs will go away, but I do think that there might be some companies that will look long and hard at, do we need some of the kind of the brute force coding done by somebody that we're paying $200,000 to? They may just opt to throw it into a chatbot and let the chatbot create the code based on what some architect comes up with. And when you look at the roles that have been hit the hardest in the market as far as layoffs are concerned, software developers and recruiters and people in talent acquisition and even HR. So those are the two major areas that have at least been the tip of the spear for these layoffs that have been happening. That are, I mean, I don't know if I'm ready to declare that this is mass layoffs, but it's sure starting to seem like this is mass layoffs. And so I was thinking about, well, how would AI impact the recruiting function? So I know there are some people out there saying, well, recruiters' jobs are going to go away and all this stuff. And I started thinking, like, maybe you're right. Maybe they will go away, because I'm not above looking at it analytically and saying, let's be realistic here. You could put some sort of an AI-driven chatbot out to scour the internet and find candidates and go through the preliminary screens and all this stuff through an automate. I mean, it's getting so sophisticated that within 1 year, you'll probably be talking to a hologram of a person and you won't be able to know. I mean, if you haven't seen any of the deep fake technology, go out and just do a search for deep fake. And you'll see, like, I think there's like a fake Tom Cruise running around the internet somewhere. And gosh, if you didn't know better, you would think it was the real Tom Cruise. I mean, it's down to the mannerisms. They do this like face mapping. And
Paris, I don't want to be late to this premiere. We gotta go.
You should always run fashionably late. It's your night.
You're so absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
How do I look? Am I all prim ready to go?
Check it out. Looking very sharp, Mr. Cruz.
I think we're really gonna wow the world.
I think people are really gonna believe that we're a couple.
I think most people will believe anything.
Story of my life.
if you're on TikTok, do that beauty filter that scans your face and basically creates a fake beauty face that makes all these people look like they're supermodels. And so this stuff is out there, and who knows, you might find yourself talking. You might not even know that you're talking to an AI person on your interview. So it could be the case that will be a reality in the not too distant future. But I'm convinced, as much as people like to pile on recruiters and say how horrible they are and all this stuff, that I don't know if it's really in your best interest to have your recruiting done by an AI robot. And let me tell you why. In today's hiring market, one of the things that really frustrates people is the fact that there is ambiguity, that a recruiter doesn't know what they're talking about. It's one of the common things about recruiters, don't even know what they're talking about. They don't know the jobs that they're recruiting. But if you put in some prompts into an AI machine, sure, they're going to be able to pull up the data probably deeper than the person who's actually doing it. And they'll be able to run you against a very detailed, they'll basically do a technical screen on your preliminary interview, and you could get eliminated right then and there. Whereas a traditional recruiter may ask you some high level things and then still get you into the interview process. So I think that that's one possible negative. I mean, it could be good for the company. It's good because they're getting people that are really deeply pre-screened before they even enter the first round of the interview process. But for the average person who might feel pretty intimidated, you're going up against a robot to convince them that you have the base level skills. And so that's one potential thing that might not be in your best interest. And when your profile scan, and of course there is some degree of it happening already in the ATS system if it's configured in a certain way, but in most cases an ATS system is not spitting people out or not pre-screening unless it's a very select few things, like the location that you live in, or if you're legally allowed to work in the country that you're applying to and that you don't need sponsorship and stuff like that. But in most major corporations, even though there might be a huge volume of applicants, you're still probably being screened physically by a human eyeball. So they'll be looking at your profile, your resume, and they're looking for certain things in it. And that's why it is a quick scan, but you're still being screened by an actual person. If it's an AI-driven process, in other words, that they have a chat bot that's going through and scanning your resume, it literally becomes, are you the exact fit for certain X, Y, and Z parameters? And you have to match that. Otherwise, there's no ambiguity. And so you could have ambiguity. A recruiter could stop on your resume and see something interesting, or they could make a judgment call and say, we have been seeing it look like this, but it could also look like this. So we could look at both profiles. So if you have this over here and not that, then we could potentially talk to you and move you into the yes pile. But with an AI-driven robot, it's going to be just one set of parameters and that's it. Now, of course, once it gets to the point of being self-aware, then maybe you have other problems to worry about. But nonetheless, it is going to be strictly driven by data and how well you match the role. And there's no ambiguity there. There's no interpretation of it. There's no reading into your resume beyond that. It's black or white. So not having that benefit of the doubt could be to a serious disadvantage to a lot of job seekers, because I don't think people realize the degree of ambiguity that a recruiter has to work with when they are selecting profiles. I know for some of you, it doesn't feel like that, but I assure you that there is that going on. And I think that this is going to be most impactful for people who are entry level or people who are certainly switching from one career path to another and trying to make a pivot where you don't have any discernible skill that is directly related to the job. And it's literally you either check it or you don't, and it's going through an AI robot. There's no pleading to the robot that you have a case or writing a great cover letter that can really demonstrate the transferable skill. The robot's going to say you either have this or you don't, and you're moved into the yes or the no pile. It's just like the algorithm. It's like you're either one or the other. It's just constantly filtering as fast as they can bring them in. So those people really benefit from having a human eyeball looking at your resume. I don't think I would want an AI doing my pre-screens, not to mention the number of candidates that could be pre-screened in the matter of an instant, where you have 1,000 applicants that come in the matter of 24 hours, which has been the case with some roles that I've recruited for myself. Yet it took us a week to get through them because we're going through and we're looking for specific things. And yes, we might have some parameters that we look at, but in a lot of cases, there is some degree of reading into it, maybe researching a little bit of a company that might be interesting or an industry that might not be totally relevant to what we're looking for, but might. So we might take a look at the company that you worked at and go, actually, that might be relevant. So we'll put you in the maybe pile. But an AI robot who's scanning through 1,000 applications in the matter of, just think of how fast they could go through it. It might only take them 5 or 10 minutes.
After which you will be required to select from the matrix 23 individuals, 16 female, 7 male, to rebuild Zion.
You're either matching those parameters or you don't, and you're moved into the yes or the no pile very quickly and very methodically and very machine-like. So I'm thinking if you hated those automatic rejections before, just wait till the AI takes over. You'll probably be getting rejected by the time you hit the button. Well, they'll probably factor in some sort of delay. Well, they'll say, once the AI sees your resume, they hit the reject button and then they wait 3 days to the hour, and then they spit you a response. That might be an interesting way to know if you're getting rejected by an AI or not. Like when you hit the submit button, see what the timestamp was for the day, and then go out probably either by 48 hours or 36 hours out, maybe 3 days out, and then see if it's the exact minute that you hit the submit button, because I'm curious about that. But I would imagine that the average job seeker will receive more rejections because of it. Not only will you likely be receiving more rejections, but you're likely going to be experiencing a significant amount more competition. And the main reason for that is because when we look at applications versus outbound recruiting or sourcing, inbound applications are when we receive applications. In other words, I post a job on LinkedIn or Indeed or somewhere else, and you see it, you put together an application, you send it to me. It's an inbound application. I'm soliciting it, and you're sending it inbound. Outbound is when I, the recruiter, go off with a set of search parameters and try to find the people that I'm interested in. So I'll go out and I will search for them manually, and I can only look through so many at a time because it's very cumbersome. It's time consuming. You have to look through a lot of nuance. I have to really try to find the right parameters and adjust things and match my search parameters. And I could take an entire day and maybe I only reach out to 8 to 10 people because a really difficult job search might be that nuanced. Whereas if you type into an AI, they're going to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, constantly running in the background, just constantly running. And they're looking and sourcing candidates, and they're going to go through every possible candidate through a set of search parameters, probably in 1/10 of the time, maybe even 1/100th of the time that an actual recruiter could, because there's no rest. They have a programmed algorithm. They're searching through, they look for keywords and all that kind of stuff really quickly. And it's just, I can just imagine like the Matrix, like the codes just come up and they're searching, and then boom, you come up with a search result, and maybe you run an adjustment on it and it goes again and does another search. But suddenly what maybe I could find 8 to 10 people that would be a possible fit for a role, they're finding 800 to 1,000 because they have the ability by scale. And so now you, the candidate, are now faced with 8 to 10 times the amount of competition than you normally would have. And then you go through this automated pre-screen, and it just, from a candidate perspective, it just seems like it would be a much more difficult process to potentially get a job. Now, from the company's perspective, maybe they would look at it and say, well, we can get the best possible person, and they can run all these algorithms about what your compensation likely could be and all this kind of stuff, and they could find the right people in the right geographic regions. And I mean, I just could see it. I can see a possible use case for it. But it seems really dystopian to me. I don't feel like it's in our best interest as job seekers to have AI taking this over. And so, some of you have made those comments where you're saying, well, wait till recruiting is taken over by AI. It's almost like they're trying to say it to like hurt my feelings or something. But at the end of the day, I'm thinking, maybe you should be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. But the point of this isn't necessarily to be all gloom and doom with this, but I just think that when I see where this thing is going, and I mean, do your own search, go and look on AI and see what kind of things that they're coming up with, and their graphic design looks like it might be a threat. Certainly software developing. Every time I seem to refresh the screen, again, there seems to be some new AI version popping up that might threaten another job type. And I don't know. I mean, when we look at what the workforce might look like in 5 years, I certainly think companies are going to aggressively look at AI. I mean, there's no way they're not, because it's so in our face now, and it's such a part of the collective consciousness, that you have to believe that companies are looking at this very seriously. And if they aren't, they are certainly going to be, because their competitors are going to do it. So I would suggest go and check out what else is out there, and see, are there any threats out there that my job could be potentially outsourced to an AI machine, and be very honest about it, because I could see recruiting being taken away by an AI, and that could obsolete an entire classification of jobs. Same thing goes with software development, and lots of other things. So I'm curious, if you've done the research yourself, let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think that your job could potentially be replaced by AI? And take the ego out of it. Like, I've had to my first reaction was, there's no possible way they could get rid of a human touch. And I'm thinking, like, is that just my ego thinking that? And in reality, I mean, it really well could be. So take the ego out of it and think on it. It's just something to ponder. Do you think, number one, is AI in your best interest as a job seeker, and how you think that might impact you? And number two, do you think your own job could be potentially affected? I'm curious to see how widespread this might be. I mean, we may wake up one day and none of us have jobs because the robots have taken over. I don't know. It's a pretty sobering and dystopian future. I hope that that's not the case, but nonetheless, I wanted to talk about that because I felt that it was a very interesting conversation, and probably not going to be it's probably not going to be the end of me talking about this ChatGPT and how it affects everything. And obviously, if you need more help with your job search, you know how to reach me. I got a website and all that stuff. So appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next one.